From my way of thinking now, I don't see any real reason to use kettlebells at all.
Say what? Grüezi miteinander, Gregory van Lebe here. Steve Maxwell said in a recent podcast that he not only abandons kettlebell training and thinks there's no more worth in it for people who are looking for some exercise or are following some recreational pursuits. He also says that Pavel Tsatsouline cannot be trusted because of the injuries he has gotten. He also mentions Dan John, and while he respects Dan, he also says that he had some hip replacements. And because of that reason, he thinks that kettlebells are not worth pursuing. Let me give you my 2 cents to the story, but first let's check out what he says.
Doing fast, high velocity, explosive movements. There's a myth in the exercise community that selectively recruits fast twitch muscle fiber. That is not true. That's patently false. You do not need to move fast to be fast.
So I talked to Dan John about this. I've read some papers and some scientific studies that point out the fact that you don't have to do exercises fast to be fast. And Dan John said, well, doing exercises explosively, for example, a clean or a snatch or a hardstyle swing, he believes that there is some transfer to the field. He has seen it in 40 years of training. So when it comes to athleticism, there might be some adaptability. And we also joked about the sheer impossibility, if that's even a word, to design a study to really determine whether explosive exercises do have any merit or not. He says it's blatantly false. I wouldn't say it that way, just because you have some research paper that points into a certain direction.
I traveled to Russia 8 times. Ironically, kettlebells were not very popular at all. We were all lied to. It's not a Russian secret weapon at all.
Depends on who you listen to. When you listen to Denis Vasilev, he shows a clear path and a clear history how kettlebells are that staple in Russian culture. When you look at the history, yes, there are some deviations. For example, you can say that the kettlebell was also found in Germany, and then the Russians took it from the Germans, or they study it, how the Germans were using it from the so-called Turnvater from Germany. Another facet of the story is that you find it in the States as well. So yes, maybe he visited sometimes Russia and he found some places where it wasn't used at all, but to say that it is a lie, I don't think that's maybe a little bit hyperbolic.
From my way of thinking now, I don't see any real reason to use kettlebells at all.
Say what?
I really don't.
Why?
And I'll never use them again. And I can tell you the injuries that people have sustained. Pavel's had both elbows surgery. He was on the Joe Rogan show. Joe says, well, why do you only advocate 2 exercises? That's because that's all he can do. Can't do anything else because his elbows are all fucked up.
Sounds a little disrespectful to me. But, these old school guys, Steve Carter, Steve Maxwell, Pavel, I mean, they had crawls all with each other, as far as I can tell. That's human beings in their natural habitat, so to speak. The reason why I believe 2 exercises are so powerful, in my opinion, it's the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. I can do almost every exercise with the kettlebell, but I love the swing and the Turkish get up. The swing is a ballistic, powerful exercise, and the Turkish get up is a powerful grind exercise that builds your whole body. So there is most definitely applicability in these 2 exercises. And saying that he advocates for 2 exercises because he can't do those others anymore because he had shoulder or elbow injury, that's exaggerating probably a little bit.
Dan John, I respect a lot. He's an interesting guy, but he's had double hip replacement surgery.
But Dan John was a discus thrower, a professional. He was doing the Olympic lifts. That maybe caused some injuries, and when you try to reach the top of the world and you want to be the best, then maybe you have to do stuff that other people don't do, and that maybe will have a toll on your body. And depending on, genetically speaking, how well you're built, maybe that some people will have a toll or take a toll and others won't. I'll talk to Dan John about this, and I'm really interested in his opinion.
The CEO of Strong First, Brett Jones, has had 9 knee surgeries. I mean, I can go on and on with the back surgeries and knee surgeries and so forth. My ex-wife, DC Maxwell, hip replacement surgery. So far, thank God, I don't have any hip surgery. But I'm loath to take advice from a guy that's had joint replacement surgery. I'm not going to take strength and fitness advice from a guy like that.
I see his argument. A coach who injured him or herself might send you down the same route. because he or she is emotionally attached to the exercise or to the sport. Maybe that's the case, but I don't believe it happens that often. I mean, many athletes and coaches injure themselves in their sports career, and maybe that was exactly the catalyst as why they started to change or why they started improving. An experience from an injury can lead to a better, actually more savvy coach who can teach you about those pitfalls that you may encounter in those certain sports or exercises. I believe it's valuable. Let's take Brittany Van Dyke, for example. She's a world champion in kettlebell sport. I can't recall that she mentioned an injury directly, but what I can say is that she said she was burned out after the competition, even though she won. If an athlete burns out and now she's a coach, does that mean that I cannot take advice from her? I believe she's very savvy, experienced, and knowledgeable. I believe she's a very good coach. So of course I'm going to take advice from her, especially because she went down that route. And maybe she can give me advice on how to avoid it. And then John, yes, he maybe had hip replacement, but I've learned so extraordinary valuable lessons from this man. I cannot even put it in words, and I'm so grateful that he's always showing up that we can have these podcasts. And think about the fact, when we talk about Pavel, kettlebell training has evolved. Let's take the Turkish get up, for example. Maybe they started to feel or they started to see, based upon the biomechanical action that is involved and the movement pattern in the Turkish get up, they saw, okay, there's something wrong with the lower back. So we have to engineer out the stress that is on the joints. And Pavel worked with McGill, one of the leading scientists when it comes to spine mechanics. So he's a very trusted source. And now we take it even a step further. Kettlebell training seems to evolve. We believe that there's a new movement coming, the hybrid movement, where people are combining hardstyle and kettlebell sports. And maybe it's like any endeavor. We have to make mistakes first to build experience in order to improve at the end.
People who got their feelings hurt from some of the things I said.
Most definitely, Steve, most definitely.
I'm not saying it doesn't work. All these systems out there are working. The gymnastic systems are working. The in the hood systems are working. The kettlebells for sure work. There's no doubt about it. Powerlifting works. CrossFit works. Olympic lifting works. It all works. But they're not all equally efficient in the time. They're not all equally safe.
Now, this is in Steve's defense, and I wanted to leave this in. I do agree with him 100%. You can be successful with almost any endeavor. You can look good, you can get shredded, you can build strength, you can build speed, and maybe some are more efficient than others. I do agree. And some endeavors are more safe than others. And I recently replied to a comment on our YouTube channel. I said, it is a beautiful time to be alive, to engage in training modalities that are safe and that can give you long-term results because we are so advanced. And he's 100% right. If you are choosing the kettlebell as your training modality, you will hurt yourself if you do it wrong. 100%. I also believe that if you copy what the kettlebell sport guys are doing with the really heavy weights, 232s, and you're prepping for a championship, and maybe you're not genetically built, your spine is not genetically built to work with that load, you may injure yourself. Your body will pay a price, maybe. What I guarantee is that you will pay a price if you engage in kettlebell training without proper instruction. I also got this from Dan John. He said, there's a cost to benefit ratio. I don't believe in incredibly heavy swings. I don't believe in incredibly heavy Turkish get up because the cost to benefit ratio does not match. Working with very heavy weights increases the injury risk, and I don't think you get a lot of benefit out of it from working incredibly heavy, especially if you do it for recreational purposes or just the general purpose of staying fit, getting stronger, losing body fat, and building muscle. Yet there is a safe way to train with kettlebells, and this is where I differ with Steve. He says, kettlebells can be dangerous, therefore I don't train with them. He also mentions that he does jiu-jitsu. Well, this can be dangerous as well, but he engages in it. And then in the later portion of the podcast, he also says, it's not about the tool, it's how you use it. And that's what it is, guys. When you work with kettlebells, you have to know how to use it. You have to have a clear goal. You have to have great and proper instruction. And still there is injury risk. Of course, as soon as you pick up a weight, there is injury risk. But you can reduce it to a minimal level if you engage with kettlebells properly. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, like it, consider subscribing if you want to see more kettlebell content. And if you're looking for a kettlebell program that builds you up from a beginner to a slowly advanced trainee in the course of about 3 months, and you maybe want to combine it with some easy to follow nutrition coaching because maybe you want to lose weight or you want to get in shape, then check out 90 Days of Kettlebells. You'll find the link in the description. 14-day free trial included.